Hello and welcome back to Coding with T. Today we're going to learn how to make this dashboard dynamic. First of all, as you can see, we have four cards at the top and each card is displaying its statistics. Sales total means we have total number of sales over here. Then the average order value, what is the average order value, how many orders we have so far. So based on these two values, we will get the average order value, and then we have visitors, how many number of visitors. There are different ways to count the visitors. If someone is not even created your account, you can count that person as well. But in our case, we are working for this customer, so the number of customers is equal to number of visitors. And here the purpose is just to teach you that how you can make different modifications. Definitely for each requirement we have to change few things. And then down below you can see we have weekly sales. So recently, while learning or while creating the weekly graph, we cover almost each and everything for the front end and back end. If you watch that video, we just need to pass the real orders data for the weekly sales to show them here. But there's one more change. You can see we have almost 10 counts on the left side, means we are going to pick the largest value from the weekly data. We will find Monday to Sunday data, and among this weekly data we're going to pick the largest value and we will divide that largest value to 10 times, and we're going to display that specific value over here, right? So we're going to see how we can dynamically share a value here. Otherwise, let's say we have a gap of 500 between these two rows. Then if the value is too large, let's say it is around 50 lakh, then that 500 will generate too many lines over here and the code will not be readable. And if let's say we have only 600, which is the highest value, which is 600, then only one line will be created over here or here maybe, and then there will be no other option, so it will not look that much attractive. Then for the order status, we also learn how to create each and everything. We just need to pass the real orders now. And for rest of the recent orders, you already know that we created orders over here. We are going to use the same orders. If you see the dashboard as a whole, we need basically the orders and the customers. So this is what we want to create today. Let's get started. Okay, we are creating Flutter e-commerce admin panel and we are at the last section of our playlist. If you're new, you can watch the previous videos. I'll drop the link of this playlist in the description. And also, if you want to download the complete code, you can either visit to codingwitht.com or you can simply get the link from the description. So let's get started. We are inside our dashboard controller, which we learned to create our graphs, which was the static dashboard. And if we go to the shop screens and open our dashboard, inside this one, we have headings and we have four cards which we learn to create. So we have static data inside these cards, but we're going to pass this data as real one. So let's try to see how we can get the sales total, average order value, total orders and visitors. First of all, we are going to create instance of our dashboard controller using get.put, and we will have that controller over here. Now using this controller, we are going to first of all extract or fetch all the orders. So let's go to dashboard controller, and if you already watch the orders screen, which is this one, in which we learn how to fetch all the orders and display it to the user. So we're going to use the same screen. If we already have that orders screen there, then we're not going to fetch the orders two times from the Firestore. So I'm just going to create the order controller here so that we can access everything we created inside our orders. And in the order controller, we have the base class, and in the base class, you can see we have all items. This means that either we already fetched all the items inside our base controller, which will contain all the orders, and based on those orders we can easily extract our own stats. Or if you have a different stats table already created, then you can simply call that instead of the order controller. And same way for the customers, I'm going to call the customer controller to access all the customers. And if you remember that we created this on init method, now what we are going to do, I'm going to change this, because at the top you can see we have simple getX controller. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to change this getX controller to use the base controller, and the base controller model will be order model that we're going to pass. If you see the base controller, it will have all these values, because we need to use this base controller for our data table to show all the orders or all the recent orders. So for that, I'm going to use the base controller, and we have to override these three missing methods. So first of all, contain search query, delete item, and search item. Sorry, fetch items. In the fetch items, let's try to fetch the items first, which is orders and customers. So let me make it an async function. Okay, in here, if you see that the fetch items is going to be called when this base controller is going to be called inside the onInit method, it is going to call the fetch data. And in the fetch data, we have fetch items. So what we need to do, we need to return the list of orders back to the fetched items, because T is now the order model, means we have to pass list of order models and assign to this function, as this function is abstract. If you are confused with abstract classes, I have already created video in this same section, which is the fourth or fifth video of this section. So make sure to watch that. Okay, inside this one, we are not going to use this on init. Do not worry about that yet. So let me remove this on init. At the top, while designing, we created the dummy list of orders over here. We are not going to use this list now. So let's close it as well. Let me extract it. Fetch items at the top. So first of all, we're going to use order controller dot all items. And if it is empty, we do not have anything inside the all items, and this variable is empty, then we are going to call order controller dot fetch items. So it is going to fetch all the items, assign. If you see this function, what this function is going to do, it is going to fetch all the items and assign back to its own base controller, which will be all items, right? So after that, we will have all items inside our order controller, and we can access all the orders from this variable. And same way, we have customer controller dot all items, means all the customers will be inside all items. If empty, this function is again going to assign all back to this variable. Now, after these two checks, we will make sure that our all items of orders or the customers will be fetched. The next thing is to calculate weekly sales, and I'm just going to call instead of the on init, because this function will be executed in the on init of our base controller, so we do not need to create two on init methods. So we just need to call this calculate weekly sales right after once the orders and customers are loaded. Same way, I'm going to call this function, which is calculate order status, which is the second graph, like this way. So we have these both functions called, and instead of using the empty or the static list of orders, we're going to call order controller dot all items, because we already know that we have fetched all the orders, and all the orders are inside now order controller dot all items, and we can easily extract one item at a time. And by this way, instead of from the static list of orders, we have all the orders generated from this function, and all the data will be assigned back to the weekly sales. And also inside calculate order status, instead of looping through static orders, call order controller dot all items. Rest of everything will remain same. We are not going to change anything that we already learned in detail in our dashboard section, in which we learn all these things one by one. And then down below for the search, we do not have anything, so we are just going to return false, so that exception is gone. And inside delete item, make it async, and we are not going to return anything from this one as well, but we have to override because of the abstract class. And now from this fetch items function, we just have to return all these orders, which we know we have inside our order controller dot all items. Control alt L to align once everything is created inside the dashboard controller. Now it's time to go for the order rows. First of all, in the order table, if you remember, we created the order table on top of these dummy orders. So if we go step by step, first of all, go to the dashboard, and in the responsive screens, go to dashboard, open the dashboard desktop, and you can see we created the instance of dashboard controller, which is this controller. And now we need to make sure each value should be updated. First of all, press Ctrl Alt L, and in here we need to replace this subtitle for sales total. So now to calculate the sales total, we are going to call our controller. In that we have the order controller, and all items inside the order controller contains all the orders. And how are we going to find the sales total? Use the fold function to sum up different things. We are going to start from 0. Previous value is 0 at start, and element dot total amount of each order will sum up one by one. And as at the end, once everything is summed up, we want to make sure that decimals should not exceed from 2 decimals, right? Otherwise, it might have a long list that we do not want to show. Okay, the next thing is average order value. We again have to call order controller dot all items. We have to sum up everything again, and we have to divide it with the all items dot length. So make sure to add those brackets, and after that again add toString to not exceed 2 decimals. And one more thing, on top of these dashboard cards, this time you have to wrap them with the widget which is obx. And if you are thinking about the why we are using all these long lines over here instead of creating a function or declaring them at the top, the reason is this obx, because whenever there is change inside this all items variable, which is obx, observable variable, or the reactive variable, we want to update our design. So we have to wait until all items are loaded, and until then there will be nothing inside it. And once those data is loaded in the all items, the obx is the one who needs to update this, right? So also we need to add obx on top of this one. Okay, now I have made two modifications. First of all, to calculate the total order, just call order controller dot all items dot length will return us the total number of orders. And for the visitors, we have to use customer controller inside our dashboard controller dot all items of customers dot length will return number of visitors. And by this way, we are done with our dashboard cards. But you see, I have added these additional 2 to 3 things because while creating the previous design, if you follow the tutorial, we do not have the icons which we want to display. So inside the dashboard card, instead of adding a simple text, I added a row on top of this section heading, and I added T circular icon with a space. So we can pass our heading icon, our own background color, icon color, and based on these 3 things, we can create our own different icons. And if you go to the dashboard desktop, you can see we have these icons, and this is what we have in the colors. Same way for the second one, for the third one, and for the fourth one. Now it's time to move to the graphs. So let's go to T weekly sales graph. Everything is created. There is nothing changed. We are using our dashboard controller, weekly sales. We have to map everything, which we already did. But what is the change at the down in the build FL title data? In this function, we hard coded the interval with the 200, right? Which is the left tiles. From left, we are going from bottom to the top, and each count will have 200 value as a gap. So this is hard coded. We do not want to use this. So first of all, I'm going to receive all those weekly sales in this function. And in here now, by using the weekly sales, we're going to extract the maximum order or the order which has the highest value. So before returning anything, use the weekly sales dot reduce. And what this reduce is going to do, it is going to reduce a collection to a single value by iteratively combining elements, right? So it is going to combine all those elements, and it is going to return us a one single value. So we're going to use A and B, which will be used as a comparison. And if A is greater than B, if it is true, we will return A, otherwise B. So based on these values, it will at the end return us the maximum order, which will be in double. And now calculate the step height. We will divide the max values with 10 so that we have only 10 lines visible. If you want to change the number of lines you want to see, you can change it from here, and make sure to use seal to double. Otherwise, we might have the values in, let's say, 11.999999. So we do not want that number of decimals, and we also need the value in double. So that's why you have to use seal to double, and use now this step height value instead of this interval. Add a step height, remove this constant, and we are done. Now at the top where we are building those left titles, we need to pass controller dot weekly sales, and this is how our weekly sales now going to display all the data dynamically. Let's go to the dashboard. After the weekly sales, we have list of orders. So go to the dashboard. Inside this paginated data table, the same way I have just wrapped the paginated table with the OBX so that we can redraw this table again. Call our order controller because we are displaying the orders over here. And if filtered items dot length is changed, we want to redraw this. If selected rows is changed, we want to redraw this. And we have all the columns over here. We added a on sort on top of order ID and give the fixed width to our status. Rest is just changes. Sort ascending with the sort ascending value, because inside this controller we have sort ascending. For the sort column index, we also have the sort column. And for the rows, now let's open the order rows, which is over here. And inside you can see we are currently calling dashboard controller dot orders, which was the static list, which I just removed that. And instead of the static list, we need to use the dynamic list of orders. So we can call dashboard controller dot instance dot order controller, and inside the order controller we have all items. If you want to use all items, because we have the search, so I'm going to use the filtered items, and we're going to pass the index. Based on that, we have all the values already assigned, And once we have that order, I just created the instance at the top because it was exceeding and we need this controller 2 to 3 times. And in the on tab, we are going to redirect user to order details page using get.toName, and we're going to pass the order as an argument. Remember, we talked about that argument and parameters are different things because in the parameters, you need to pass a JSON with the key and value. So based on that key, we're going to extract the value and we're going to again get orders from the database. So if you want to use the parameters, you can use that. And then in the selected, we will again check selected rows, which is a list of booleans. If at this index selected row is true, this means this row is selected, otherwise it will be false. And on change is going to update this selected row from here at current index with the new value. If on change is now selected, this will assign true at this index, and based on this true index, this selected will be selected. And then rest of everything is same. Just update the row count to filtered items dot length and also controller dot selected rows. Where selected is true, we want to count that length. Okay, once everything is assigned and created, and now it's time to see the results. Let's run in the Chrome. Okay, here our application is running, and at the top you can see we have all those values fetched. We have 5 visitors, total orders 10, average value is this, and sales total is this much, right? So in order to fetch the weekly sales order status and then the table, definitely we have missed two things. If we open it again and go to the widgets of order status graph, you can see we are directly displaying all the orders like this way, but we did not add any OBX because order status will take time. This is a real data and it is coming from the cloud storage, and it will definitely take time to load. And meanwhile it is loading, we want to display some loader. And for the order status graph, I have wrapped that graph right on top of the sized box with the controller dot order status data dot is not empty. Make sure to add OBX. It is going to check that if this data is not empty, then it is only going to display the status graph. Otherwise, it is going to return a sized box of height 400, because in that we have a row. To align that specific loader inside the center screen, we are using T loader animation widget, and down below to display all the status colors, we are using the table data. And also at the top, you can see we have OBX, sorry, it's data table, not table data. And then in the rows again, we are using rest of the things like we are using previously. There is nothing changed in it. Make sure to add OBX over here as well. And in the weekly sales, you can see first one is heading. That's fine because inside these sales as well, I have added a row, circular icon, and size, and then text. Previously it was simple text, but now we are displaying icons along with these cards also. So on top of this graph, which was the bar chart and sized box on top of it, and now on top of the sized box, again we're going to check if weekly sales is not empty, only then we're going to display the data. Otherwise, we want to display a loader. Same way we display it for the order status graph, which will be T loader animation, and rest of the things are same. Now let's try to run it again and let's see if we receive some results. Okay, I think it is loading, and we have another one issue. It tries to load. This one is loaded, and I think down below we have the tables also loaded, but weekly sales is giving some issue, which is site titles dot interval could not be 0. I think in the weekly sales, we have created this step height, and using the step height, it is saying that if it is 0, because currently we do not have any record inside this table, and if the step height is 0, which is in this case, definitely it will become 0, and interval cannot have a 0 value. So let's try to change it. If step height is less than equal to 0, let's give it some value. Let's say it will be 500, and otherwise we want to use the step height. Maybe this should work. Let's run it again. It is loading data, and yes, it is working. So we have Monday to Sunday. Currently we do not have orders in these dates, so we have some old record over here. This means the data is working. And on the right side, our background color is gone. Why this happened? Okay, I guess while adding these OBX, I did not notice, but I removed this header and also this T-rounded container. So that's why there is no background color and there is no heading. So I've added that back. Now let's save it. Okay, it is loading, and yes, it is working now. You can see we have weekly sales, order status, and recent orders. And all the 4 cards are now having the latest data. Okay, so by this way, I'm very much happy and excited to announce that we have successfully created our admin panel. We learn how to create the media screens. We have different folders. We have different brands. We learn each and every concept to handle the images, the media inside our admin panel. what are the limitations, how we can enable cores. Then we have categories, brands. We learn the responsiveness. We learn our own strategies to handle navigation, and each thing has its own separate section. So again, if you're new and if you still have any questions, you can ask me in the comments. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to watch the previous videos. I'll drop the link in the description. You can also download this complete code. I'll keep modifying and updating this code again and again, and I'll make sure that whenever you're going to download the code, it will remain the latest. It doesn't matter when you are going to download this. So all the packages and all the plugins, each and everything will remain up to date. And by this end, thank you so much for watching and following me along. And now the next tutorial is about to deploy this complete admin panel on our Firebase hosting, which is going to be very informative tutorial. So see you in the next video. Thank you for watching and take care.